Teacher evaluations have been a controversial issue here in New Mexico in recent months. A group of teachers joined us in studio when the evaluations were released by the State Public Education Department. Now, the Albuquerque Journal recently profiled one teacher who was retiring, and his evaluations went from highly effective, that's in quotes, to minimally effective in 1 year. Students and teachers are now out on summer break, certainly, but the debate over evaluations is far from over. And I'd like to welcome to our line opinion panelists this week, starting with Janice Arnold-Jones, a former state Republican representative. Rob Nicoleski is from watchdog.org. Our good friend John Wertheim is a former New Mexico Democratic Party chairman. And we have Sophie Martin at the table. She's a local attorney and editor of DukeCityFix.com. Janice, let me start with you on this. The evaluation, I just referred to the teacher that profile in the Journal. A lot of folks would just feel that in their gut. Something's not quite right here. How did that fit you? Did you accept the explanations from the PED on how this, in fact, could happen?
Well, I accepted that they said it.
There you go.
but that was it, because we knew going into this that what has happened was going to happen. We talked about it, and especially for gifted teachers who are teaching, especially at the higher end, there is no place for those students to go. But here is a really good science teacher, and if you've read the other reports in the Journal, all of the comments, people came out of the woodwork from years ago about how talented this teacher was, and yet he is minimally effective. There is something not right. But the details of being evaluated based on science grades from 3 years ago for the students that this man did not teach. Is that right?
That's right.
It's not. And I just have to say, can we make it any more complicated or any more unfair?
Interesting. John Wertheim, staying on this fellow who is now retired and coming forward. In fact, he contacted the Journal to tell his story, which I thought was pretty interesting. But we also had teachers who were rated highly effective, not accepting their own evaluations and burning them, frankly, in front of headquarters. What did you make of that?
Well, I think what it shows is that the line teachers recognize that this test is arbitrary, and that the results of it don't mean anything. I mean, that's the word, people using words like meaningless, unfair. What do they mean by that? What they mean is that how do you evaluate a special ed teacher using some sort of same standard as you do a teacher who's lucky enough to teach a gifted class? You know, you can't do it unless you really plan for it carefully. And that's where I think the administration has a disaster on its hands. I mean, if they were commanders in the field in Iraq or some of our recent wars, I mean, if you had outright mutiny in the ranks, you'd be firing generals, right? And yet we don't even, you know, Scandera wasn't even available. Secretary Scandera wasn't even available for comment for one of the articles. You know, so we're talking about being totally absent in a crisis. I look to Massachusetts, which is widely regarded as having the best public educational system in the country. They're adopting the same PARCC tests. They've adopted an extensive 3-year transition plan before they even start using it for teacher evaluations. I would encourage people to go up on the web and look at the Massachusetts Department of Education and contrast it with the disaster zone that is the New Mexico PED.
Exactly. Sophie, you know, that runway John's referring to, that's a constant I'm hearing from teachers as well. That, as Janice mentioned, if I'm going to be held accountable for someone else's teaching prowess 2 years ago, and this student lands in my lap, and I got to take care of my business to get my test scores up, where's the fairness in that? It's very difficult.
It seems very unfair. I mean, I think another element, sort of to John's point, you know, it's one thing for us as a community to say we think we may have problems in the teachers' ranks. We may have individual teachers who perhaps aren't performing at the level that we'd like to see them perform at. But what we see now, and I think this is very effective on the part of the teachers at this point, is, you know, we have this phenomenon where it's like, I may dislike teachers as a whole, and I don't, but you know what I mean. Someone may dislike teachers as a whole, but they like the individual teacher who taught them or who's teaching their child at that moment. And when that individual teacher says, look, I think this is a really big problem, it becomes much easier for the community to say, you know what, I get it now. I see what you're illustrating. I see where the issues are. And to see the kind of, what really does feel very arbitrary, as the details come out now that we've had a round of PARCC testing and these evaluations have come through, who is running this show? Who is making these decisions that allow that kind of swing in evaluation, which we know can't be accurate?
Sure. You know, Rob Nicoleski, as I'm looking over the article we're referencing here, an English teacher said he was judged on student progress in algebra and geometry. It just doesn't seem to fit. You know?
Yeah, it doesn't. But it seems that, I mean, from an outsider's perspective, it seems like we need to have a healthier balance here, because in the words of Arne Duncan, today in our country, he said this 5 years ago, today in our country, 99% of our teachers are above average. And that was the problem. We had a binary system here in New Mexico where a teacher was either labeled effective or ineffective, and 99% of them, or some figure like that, came back effective. There's no industry in the world where 99% of everyone, of the employees are effective.
Agreed.
But the real part of the real heartburn seems to come from these value-added modeling, where you statistically track a student over a course of a number of years. Now, I agree with you. I mean, judging an English teacher by algebra scores doesn't seem to make much sense. But this is something that the Obama administration and Arne Duncan has signed off on, and it's something that's a value-added modeling system that a lot of other places in the country have taken. Now, you could make an argument as well that, well, maybe the value-added modeling shouldn't have so much emphasis, or you can take a look at it that way. But I think just from an outsider's perspective, from a New Mexico taxpayer's perspective, we need to find something that's more in the middle.
Sure, absolutely.
I would say, so I just have to rant. So what my kids have been in 9 different systems across the country, and when I came back home, we have now had multiple standard tests. And I think the last count I had was 6.
Wow.
And the discussion of walking them back, crosswalking, horse hockey, they don't mean anything. And worse than that, the tests, even this current test, asks things that could not be taught. I can remember in the early 90s in Virginia, they would ask children what an iron was in the primary grades. Well, they'd never seen it. So we're really missing the boat. And yet the one thing that we know, and I know as a parent, that truly is effective is let us unleash the principles. Evaluations and being in the classroom, observing teachers and giving them feedback for my child today is much more effective than my waiting for 8 years for you to track my child and tell me they are now failing.
That's a good parent's perspective there. That's interesting. John, one of the recent wrinkles we've also had, you mentioned Secretary Skandera. Apparently she was instrumental in getting the length of the test shortened a little bit. We've gotten a bit of a, I don't know if it's a waiver or whatever the case may be, but it seems like an hour and a half or 90 minutes or so is going to be taken off. Big difference to you in your gut when you contemplate this?
I guess I agree with, Charles Boyer, the president of the National Education Association, said that it's a step in the right direction. But I thought he had a turn of phrase that's very interesting. It's not about the children in the room, it's about the adults in the room. It's kind of what Janice is talking about. How should these evaluations take place? I think they're inherently a little more subjective than perhaps the corporate model goes along. Think about how hard it is to devise a system that would be value added. That would imply that if you do a good job in children's early years, there's literally no improvement that can be measured. We know, so I think we've got it all backwards. We need to be investing in more like early childhood education, making sure nutrition is straight. We're the 49th poorest state in the union. The educational difficulties we're having are in fact going to be affected by resources, especially resources in early childhood. We cannot test our way out of poverty in New Mexico. We cannot test our way out of inequality, and that's the real problem. I will leave a note that the PARCC test itself is moving towards this deep learning. There's a lot of good things in Common Core and PARCC. And so unfortunately, it's kind of using it for teacher evaluation has been a disaster zone here and in other states. New Jersey's delaying it, other states are delaying it.
We'll have to see it all plays out as they say. Up next, we get different perspectives on the cost of energy now and in the future.